Today from the Global Lane, Christians under fire in the Balkans, church property seized, people arrested.
We expected that this cannot and couldn't happen in Montenegro, but unfortunately it's happening now.
Forced sterilizations and abortions. China commits genocide against ethnic Uyghurs. Black voters leaving Joe. Will they support Kanye West for president?
He specifically says that I am tired of being made to feel like I have to be a Democrat just because I'm African American.
And no singing allowed in California churches. And it's all right here on the Global Lane. Christians under fire. An ancient church threatened by the leftist government of Montenegro. It's a small country, now a NATO member, but once a part of the former Yugoslavia. In 2006, it became an independent nation. 80% of its people are Orthodox Christian. But now their 800-year-old church is under threat. A new religion law passed late last year gave the Montenegrin government authority to seize church property and close churches, all in an attempt to minimize the influence of the church on that society. Well, joining us from Buljarice, Montenegro, to fill us in on this wave of persecution in the Balkans is attorney Vladimir Leposevic. He's a Fulbright scholar and chief legal counsel for the Serbian Orthodox Church. Vladimir, tell us why this new law was passed when 80% of your country and the people there are Serbian Orthodox.
For 30 years now, the government of Montenegro obviously is running out of any meaningful political agenda or political goal, also faced with failures made within its economy policy during the last couple of decades. The government of Montenegro now decided to just go for confiscating and nationalizing the property of the church. The way they just want to do that is that actually government claims that the churches and the temples supposedly do not belong to the church itself. We have a situation where the government doesn't want to use the available and well-known legal mechanisms within the legal order of Montenegro. They don't want to prove their claim. They want the church to prove that claim, but check this now, not in front of the regular courts, within the regular lawful court proceeding, but in front of the administrative organ, like the government's body.
You had mass protests there, but there's been no change in the law. It's still in force. Even the pro-church politicians have been dragged from their offices and homes. They've been arrested by the government. Tell us more about that.
Exactly. Well, first of all, when the law has been adopted 7 months ago, we had a situation that there wasn't any dialogue between the state and the religious communities. At least it wasn't the case with us. We had something like a take it or leave it dialogue, and then the law has been adopted, and just right after that, the massive and so far continuous civic protests emerged. Those protests are interesting because they're happening as a prayer walks, and they're unique. They're also celebrating the Christian faith here in Montenegro. They're happening for 7 months now in every single city of Montenegro. What is really important to mention is that these are the largest protests in the history of Montenegro, while probably the first completely peaceful in Balkans. So we have a new situation. In a war, the people do not want to give up on their shrines and to give up on what they believe the most. So the government is still silent. We as a legal team, and I can tell that with 100% being sure about what are the intention of the church. We actually propose just a couple of provisions from that law to be changed. And when we ask those changes, we don't ask anything else but to be in an equal position as every other legal owner in the country. So we are calling for applying the European Convention of Human Rights and actually for applying the Constitution of Montenegro. By defending our faith and our church, we are defending the legal order of Montenegro. As you mentioned before, what makes this situation being really bizarre is that Montenegro is a NATO member, and also it's a candidate for the European Union membership. So we expect that, since we are talking about the international organizations that are celebrating, not just protecting, but even celebrating the rule of law and the principle of equality and the best practices and standards in legal protection of every human equally, we expected that this cannot and couldn't happen in Montenegro, but unfortunately it's happening now.
Well, most members of NATO are democracies, and a primary principle of democracy is the freedom of religion. Now, I know some members of the British Parliament have spoken out against this law and the treatment of Montenegrin Christians. So what would you like to see the United States do?
There was, and there still is, Virginia Declaration of Rights from 1776 that stipulates that whenever the dispute related to property issue, any property issue like emerged between two men, the sacred rule to be held is the rule of the court proceeding and the court trial. So the protection of the property rights, the private property rights, is in the air all over the world for more than 230 years. And when we talk to another subjects to government, international organization, as well as our listener or the co-talkers in the United States, is to ask them to help us to come to the dialogue, to come to the table together with the government, so that the government can really realize that what the majority of people in Montenegro are asking is something that is a minimum of protection guaranteed by our constitution, but also by all the relevant international legal instruments. So we just try for that kind of moral and objective support from anyone.
Vladimir Leposevic, attorney with the Serbian Orthodox Church in Montenegro, thank you for your time and insights.
Thank you for having me.